Yes, it is. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. It's a bit cold out there. The agenda is apologies, substitute members, declaration of interest, confirmation of minutes, public issues, code of conduct complaints review, code of conduct complaints BCP 10. Rob will now pick it up from there. Sorry, I got it out. Oh, sorry. Okay, then.
Yeah. Well, good evening, everybody. Now let's just start with the formal housekeeping notice. Please note that this meeting of the Standards Committee is being recorded by the Council and will be published on the Council's website for a minimum of 6 months. Any councillors or officers not in the room and wishing to speak, please use the raise your hand feature and switch on your video when invited to speak. Please could members who are in the room only speak when invited to by the chairman and mute your microphone when you're not speaking. And finally, please ensure that all background noise is kept to a minimum and that mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you very much. And then, members, if I may go to the agenda, apologies for absence. We've received apologies from Councillor Andy Jones, and Councillor Anne Filer is attending remotely, and so won't be able to join in any voting if that should prove necessary. Item 2, there are no substitute members. Item 3, may I invite any members to make any declarations of interest? Don't appear to be any declarations, thank you, Chairman. And then item 4 is the confirmation of the minutes of your last meeting on the 5th of July of last year. If I could have it, agree. Councillor Kelsey's proposal, and there's someone second who was there at the meeting, Councillor Andrews. Moving on to item 6, there are no public issues. Sorry, item 5. There are no public issues for tonight's meeting. Thank you, Chairman.
I'm not. Yeah. Sorry. Code of conduct complaints review is item 6, right? Who'd like to lead on that? Anybody?
Yes, shall I just make reference to the report?
Yes, please.
So you'll see in the pack that there's an update report, which is an update report since the report prepared by Richard Jones, Head of Democratic Services, and that was presented to the last committee in July. The report details the type of complaint, the number of complaints, and where the complaint is in the current process. You'll see from the report that there's quite a large number, and unfortunately, due to capacity issues towards the end of last year, there was some delay in processing some of those. We are on top of that now, and we've arranged regular meetings so that these are progressing. There is an update to some of the reports in here, in that we had a consultation meeting yesterday, so some of the matters towards the end, identified towards the end of the report, are in fact resolved. Otherwise, the type of complaint varies. There are a number of complaints in relation to tweets, a number of complaints in relation to conduct at meetings, and a number of other miscellaneous. So if you've got any specific questions in relation to the report, please do let me address those.
Oh. Who'd like to open? Vanessa, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's not actually a question, it's more of a statement. We've been having these informal meetings, and one of the things that keeps coming up is the delay or actual non-committal of members who have are being investigated, who have been accused of breaching the code of conduct, not actually responding to the monitoring officer, despite on occasions numerous attempts to get members to respond. And I think that this is appalling. It shows total disrespect for the Standards Committee, for the process, and for the Chairman of Standards as well. And I'm wondering, Chairman, through you, if I may ask the monitoring officer, if they feel that there is anything that can be done formally to try to get over to members that being reported for a breach of standards is an extremely serious matter and not to be taken lightly, and that members should respond in good time to these complaints so that we can deal with them. We are having to put off dealing with complaints, waiting for members to respond. And this doesn't look good. It doesn't look good to the people that are making those complaints. And it certainly isn't good for the committee having to keep meeting to consider these complaints when we haven't received those responses. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Ricketts. I would support that wholeheartedly. And unfortunately, I think probably the best we can do is to put a circular out to members. I have discussed with the Chief Executive about another comprehensive training program because it's been some time since we trained on the new Code of Conduct. I'm not sure that we will be able to fit anything in between now and the election, but certainly this subject matter is going to form part of the induction training for all members, both new and existing, after the next election. So if you can bear with us for that period of time, but I wholeheartedly support that, and thank you very much for raising it.
Monitoring officer, I just wonder if you could clarify, why could we not just implement that? Is it something that would need to go through audit and governance for them to make a change into the constitution to say that members have, for example, a 14-day period from the date of receiving a complaint to respond to it? Would we need to get that authorised through audit and governance?
A specific timescale like that would need to go through the Constitutional Review Working Group and so on. But there's nothing to stop us now, even before the election, perhaps I wasn't clear, putting out a general message to councillors to please, because there is a provision in the new code that requires members to cooperate with investigations and with complaints made. And I'm not sure whether that has really been recognised by members sufficiently. So perhaps a good reminder on that, because that training has been done. But the specific timescale, yes, would have to go through.
In that case, could I propose that yourself, Mr. Chairman, as Chairman of the Standards Committee, that you write to Councillor Beasley, Chairman of Audit and Governance, and ask him to place that issue immediately onto the governance review to have that implemented? I know that Councillor Ricketts is of the same opinion as I am. It's too long for people to respond, and we can't just keep going back to them saying, you've got another week, you've got another week, you've got another week. That's just not good enough. I think this needs to be done quickly, sharply, and straight away. So I think, Chairman, if other members are happy, I'd like you to write to the Chairman of Audit and Governance, please.
I'm very happy to second that. No, I just said I'm very happy to second that proposal.
Anne, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and good evening, everybody. I've got a cough, so if I have a spluttering attack in the middle of all this, please excuse me. I'd like to just agree completely with Councillor Ricketts and Councillor Kelsey, but I have to say that although obviously we'll have to have some proper training, certainly for the new council, I don't think training is going to tell people how seriously they should take this. Something that I've thought for a long time, and I've never knowingly been reported to the Standards Board, and I would be mortified if I was. I've said that before, but other people seem to think it's sort of just some sort of game. And the trouble is, if it goes on for month after month after month, the original complaint loses its force. It could have been something quite important back in July, but by now it all looks a bit, well, it's lost its impact. And I don't know how the committee is going to get all members to think that it's really serious thing to come to this committee. A lot of less serious complaints or more frivolous complaints or more generalised ones that are weeded out earlier on in the process by yourself, monitoring officer, and by others as well. But by the time it comes to this committee, it is really serious. So just ignoring it and think it's going to go away isn't good enough. And it downgrades the seriousness of this committee if a lot of people don't bother to do anything with it at all and just dismiss it as something political or frivolous or any of those things. It's not. It is serious, and I'm not sure how we get that through to people. Yeah, if it were a little bit more timely, but I hope people would actually tremble when they're reported to this committee and worry about it. It is, otherwise it looks as if we have no teeth. If everything's put back to month after month, which will rectify through this move, I hope, which I completely support, that's one thing. But getting through how serious it is, I don't know how we do that. It seems that a lot of people just dismiss it, go through the motions, and yeah, well, I'm not going to take up any more time repeating myself before I have a coffee fit, but I do really think that's the case. And this is a serious committee. We don't meet often, but when we do have these big committee meetings, it's something very serious. And I'd like to get that through to all our colleagues.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I concur with what's been said so far. It is disrespectful to this committee and to the council generally for very experienced councillors in some situations to ignore completely a complaint that's come in, or perhaps not make a proper response to the complaint that's been put against them. I think I've said this at a previous meeting, because this is not the first time that we've got into this situation, that without revealing to the group leader, if that person is a member of a political grouping on the council, what the complaint is all about, but the mere fact that a member of their group has ignored or not properly dealt with a complaint against them might be something which could be considered as part of this Audit and Governance Working Party, because we don't have many teeth here. Political groupings sometimes do have particular rules where people have to adhere to, and it might add to the situation to get some responses. Clearly, obviously, if the complaint hypothetically is against a group leader, that creates an issue itself, because but obviously most groups have a deputy leader, and it's something which could be considered by Audit and Governance. And the third comment to make is, I'm sure we're not the only council where councillors ignore complaints or don't treat the Standards Committee with the respect that it merits. And I say this quite often, rather than reinventing the wheel, possibly talking to 2 or 3 other councillors, the monitoring officer could do it with her contacts, as to how they have perhaps dealt with this situation, might prove beneficial as well. Thank you.
Now, can I just say, if it went to Audit and Governance, what next? What authority will they end up with? Like here tonight, we're here deciding things. We know what hopefully the result will be, but we don't know what Audit and Governance would do.
Well, the hope would be that Audit and Government would change the constitution to allow us to insist that responses are made. And as I said at our meeting yesterday, if they're not made, then any complaint that has been heard should be upheld and brought to the Standards Committee. And that should be the end of it. They shouldn't have the opportunity to defend themselves. If they can't do it in 14 days, then they should come in front of us as a committee.
Anybody else like to? Oh, so yes, please.
While councillors have been speaking, I've just been giving some thought to what Councillor Andrews said, and Councillor Ricketts and Councillor Kelsey and everybody, in fact. So I think it's a really good idea, possibly for the monitoring officer to have regular meetings with either the group managers or the group leaders to just update on the number of complaints possibly, as Councillor Andrews suggests, without the specifics, and enlist their support possibly. I think the time limit placed in the Constitution, because the legislation has given councils an enormous amount of discretion to determine the rules by which they manage their code of conduct complaints. So we, if council agrees, because we'll have to go through the Constitution, can strengthen those rules. I know the sanctions remain unfortunately wanting, but I think if we strengthen those rules, and there is the real feeling that council members in the majority are behind this, perhaps it will give some vigour to our process. And I'm certainly happy to try and help to progress any of that. Thank you, Chair.
If I may, Chair.
Yes, yes.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's quite a good idea. If we suddenly find ourselves with a glut of complaints again, then I think you would be totally within your rights to go to the group leader. If, just as an example, if 20 of those complaints were all from one party, people from all from one party, I would expect you to go to the monitors and say you need to get a grip of your councillors because they're really, breaking the rules here. And I think it would be ideal if you went to each of the group leaders. They all have a group leader, as Councillor Andrews said. I think it'd be an ideal situation if you inform them your councillors are getting out of hand. They need to be reined in. Have a meeting with them. Tell them. You don't have to give them the specific names of the councillors, but just tell them as a whole your group are stepping out of line.
Vanessa, please.
Thank you, Chairman. One of the things that I'm pleased to see recently, in the recent months, is that the complaints that we've been dealing with have not been councillor on councillor. And I think that this is an improvement, that it's not the tit for tat complaints that we were seeing perhaps at the beginning of the year. But if anything, we have a very large number of complaints here, and these are from members of the public. And perhaps in the past, perhaps the group leaders have thought, well, perhaps most of these are, tit for tat, they're political. Perhaps if the group leaders actually realise that these are complaints that we're receiving from members of the public over concerns that they have with how councillors are behaving, that perhaps they might actually sit up and take notice a lot more once they appreciate that this is the public perception of the council and these councillors. And perhaps when the monitoring officer, if the monitoring officer is going to speak to the members, that this could actually be reiterated so that they do realise that this is not just tittle tattle, this is not, people doing it out of spite or anything like this. This is actually our residents out there concerned about how our members are behaving.
Is anybody else wishing to comment? Can we ask the officers then to compile a letter suitable, try and sort some of this out?
We can pick up those points.
Yeah, okay. Right. Anybody else got any further actions on this one? Move on to group number 7, Bob? Yes. Yeah. It's to consider a report on compliance submitted to the code of conduct complaint. That's all now. Item 7 will not be considered at today's meeting as the complaint has already been determined. The complaint will be notified of this decision within the next few days.
Excuse me, Chairman. Have you concluded item 6? I'm not sure that we had.
Yeah, I thought so. I asked everybody.
Oh, beg your pardon.
Well, I've asked and nobody responded, so.
Did you want to ask members perhaps if they would agree the recommendation for item 6?
Everybody's got it? Yeah, happy? Yes? Yeah. Yeah, individual. I've got everybody. Okay. So going back to item 7 again, the compliant will be notified this next few days. So has anybody got any brief comments? I don't want to get it deep. I think that the item 7 is not being considered today, so I can't really offer anybody, unless you find a different way, Nessa.
Chairman, thank you. I'd just like to assure anybody watching or the members of the public here present today that this item was given the full consideration of this board, and it was not a decision that was easy to make.
No.
And we examined all the evidence before us for this particular complaint. And just because it didn't come to the Standards Committee doesn't mean that a complaint is not considered to be serious. We do consider these complaints very, very carefully, even when in closed session. And I'd just like to assure people that are watching that the full due process was given to this complaint. Thank you.
Anybody who wishes to speak on it? Well, I feel very lucky really to have officers who are able to give you a real good answer. It's not guessing, they can tell you exactly how it should be laid out. And I do appreciate the officers' information and help on this, because they are not easy cases. We need that experience on the committee.
Chair, can I just ask that you invite independent persons?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Ian,
Yeah?
is there anything that you'd like to say?
I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
We can, Ian.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good, that's fine. I wasn't. I'm going to say I share the frustrations on the first point, item number 6, expressed by various councillors about the apparent lack of respect shown by members who are accused of breaching the code of conduct. It does bring the whole system into disrepute. So thank you for that. On item 7, I have nothing further to add, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, Paul, anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Chairman. No, I don't have anything further to add at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further business, we'll close the meeting at whatever time it is. The clock in this room. 10.
Next meeting?
Yes, I thought we'd done that for the end of January, wasn't it?
We just need to formally confirm that we're going to have the next meeting on the 28th of February at 6 p.m, which I think is the day that members were comfortable with. But that's not in the calendar meeting, so we need to just formally confirm that now.
Yes, please. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, everyone happy with that next?
Sorry, Chairman.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Ian.
Chair, did you say it was the end of January? Because I have it as the end of February, the last day of February, the next full
Yeah,
week.
28th of February, Ian.
Correct. Thank you.
Sorry.